In 2023, under a veil of secrecy, the U.S. government quietly deported over 130 Venezuelan migrants. These individuals, seeking refuge and a new beginning, found themselves caught in a web of legal complexities. But the shocking part is that they were not sent back to Venezuela, their country of origin, but instead to El Salvador, a nation with its own set of challenges. This controversial move was justified using the centuries-old Alien Enemies Act, a law rarely invoked in modern times. These individuals were labeled as gang members, often without any concrete evidence to support such claims. Stripped of their rights, these men were denied fair trials, a fundamental principle of justice. Adding to the injustice, their whereabouts were deliberately hidden from their worried families and legal advocates for months, leaving them in a state of agonizing uncertainty. Outraged, human rights groups condemned the action, calling it a forced disappearance, a grave violation of international law. They emphasized that the men were primarily asylum seekers, desperately seeking safety and protection, not hardened criminals. Instead of finding the sanctuary they sought, they were shockingly sent to CECOT, El Salvador's notorious mega-prison, a facility known for its harsh conditions and strict security measures. This prison was originally built for gang crackdowns, designed to house dangerous criminals, not vulnerable migrants seeking refuge. Disturbingly, the U.S. reportedly paid El Salvador a sum of $6 million to accept these migrants, raising serious ethical questions. This financial transaction effectively turned a complex humanitarian crisis into a cold, calculated transaction, prioritizing political expediency over human dignity. It's important to note that most of these individuals had no prior criminal record, further highlighting the injustice of their situation. These were simply men fleeing the economic collapse and political turmoil in Venezuela, seeking a safer and more stable life. Now, they find themselves trapped in a complex geopolitical deal, their fates hanging in the balance. The decision to use an archaic wartime law for this purpose raises serious concerns about the erosion of human rights protections. This sets a dangerous precedent, potentially paving the way for future abuses of power and the marginalization of vulnerable populations. It allows for the extrajudicial transfer of vulnerable people, bypassing due process and undermining the principles of justice and fairness. In this high-stakes game of international politics, their lives have become mere bargaining chips, their humanity disregarded. Their stories are lost in a maze of secrecy and complex international politics, leaving them vulnerable and forgotten. Inside CECOT, a place that was meant to hold criminals, the men faced relentless misery, a daily struggle against inhumane conditions. Cells were cramped, windowless, and stifling, offering no escape from the oppressive atmosphere. With dozens packed together like sardines, they found no relief from the sweltering heat, making each breath a burden. Hygiene was nearly impossible, a basic human right denied. One overflowing toilet per cell served as a constant reminder of the squalor, with scarce water making cleanliness an unattainable luxury and offering absolutely no privacy. Sleep meant bare metal bunks, offering no comfort or rest, or sitting on the floor, finding any small space to rest their weary bodies. Exhaustion compounding their suffering, pushing them to the brink of despair. Food was meager, a constant reminder of their deprivation. Beans, tortillas, rice, barely enough to survive, leading to malnutrition and weakening their bodies. Disease spread easily in the unsanitary, overcrowded conditions, turning the prison into a breeding ground for illness. Every aspect of life was controlled, monitored, and restricted. All of this was designed to break their spirit and erase their dignity, stripping them of their humanity. "I thought I was going to die there," recalled one detainee, his voice filled with the lingering trauma of his experience. Their quest for safety, their hope for a better life had become a nightmare of survival, a desperate fight for their very existence. Physical suffering was matched by psychological torment. Guards enforced silence with violence. Beatings and even sexual abuse were reported. The threat of La Isla, a punishment cell, loomed constantly. Cut off from families and lawyers, the men became invisible, taunted, told they were forgotten. Desperate, they staged hunger strikes and even wrote SOS in their own blood on cell walls. These acts were pleas for help, not self-destruction. Birthdays and milestones passed in isolation, deepening their despair. They were held indefinitely, without charges or due process, their humanity systematically stripped away, their only crime seeking refuge. This story is a stark indictment, a damning portrayal of how easily systems designed to protect can be twisted and corrupted, of a system that failed at every level, betraying its fundamental purpose and the very people it was meant to serve. Most men had no criminal record, their lives previously untouched by the long arm of the law, yet were punished without trial, their fates sealed without the opportunity to defend themselves or present their case. Due process abandoned, cast aside as if it were a mere inconvenience. The U.S. outsourced enforcement, shifting responsibility to another nation's jurisdiction, to a country known for prison brutality, a place where human rights were often secondary to political expediency. El Salvador accepted payment, incentivized to participate in a system that disregarded basic human rights, to detain men who'd committed no crime there, effectively becoming prisoners of a political arrangement. Human rights groups called it torture, a systematic violation of fundamental human dignity, and forced disappearance, actions that leave families in agonizing uncertainty. A recent prisoner exchange freed many, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. But the injustice and dangerous precedent remain, a chilling reminder of what can happen when safeguards are ignored. When governments bypass legal protections, when they circumvent established norms and procedures, it erodes the rule of law and human dignity, undermining the very foundations of a just society. The suffering of these men is a warning. Migrants are vulnerable, often caught between desperate circumstances and the harsh realities of border control. And secret deals can lead to abuse, flourishing in the shadows of unaccountable power. Their ordeal demands accountability, a thorough investigation, and a reckoning with the failures that led to such injustice. Transparency, a commitment to openness and public scrutiny of government actions, and a renewed commitment to human rights for all, regardless of their origin or status.